Hello everyone, and welcome to this Diablo 3 Conquest guide for the Boss Mode Seasonal Achievement, also known as the Worlds Apart achievement in Hardcore mode. With the right class and setup, this can be a good conquest to complete to make progress on your seasonal objectives. To complete this achievement, you'll need to kill 16 different bosses within 20 minutes of the start of a game. The list of which specific bosses you need to kill is provided in the achievement itself. You can use this in-game list to monitor your progress during your run, but it's easier if you can make a list of your own, either electronic on a second monitor or even by hand with a piece of paper. With your own list, you can arrange the bosses in the ideal kill order to help you better monitor your progress and make sure you're on track for a successful run. Some bosses are more difficult to locate than others, requiring you to traverse large zones and sometimes backtrack if you hit a dead end. These bosses can sometimes take up an excessively disproportionate amount of time, not giving you enough time to kill the remaining ones. You'll want to pursue these bosses first, so that if you spend too long on them, then you can restart the game for a new attempt without wasting too much of your time. Adria and Urzael are easily the top two hardest to find bosses, with Diablo and Izual not far behind, so you'll want to hunt them down first. These bosses will have the most variability in the time that it takes to find them, so if you notice you've spent too much time on these four, then you can cut your losses and remake the game. The next three, the Queen, the Butcher, and Ghom, are the next hardest ones to find. They also have high variability in the time it takes to locate them. However, each of these bosses has a specific path leading up to their entrance that is the same for each game. You'll approach each boss entrance from the lower left, heading toward the upper right of your screen, along a longer straight section of dungeon. You can leverage this knowledge to better navigate the zones, particularly when there is a kill bounty for one of the bosses. When a boss bounty is active, a ping location will show up on the map to give you direction on where to go. For these three bosses, since you know you'll need to approach the ping location from the lower left, don't necessarily head directly for it, and instead try to circle around to approach it from the correct angle. The next boss is Cydaea, who is in her own category for locating difficulty. While the specific route to get to her is random, there aren't any offshoots that will lock you into a dead end. You just need to follow the dungeon route around in a circle until you find the entrance to the next level. The remaining 8 bosses all have very linear pathways to get to them, and most of them actually have the same pathway every game with no randomness involved. They will have the least amount of variability in the time it takes to find them, so you can reliably kill them within a certain amount of time. If you don't have at least 8 minutes remaining before you start these 8 bosses, then it's probably best for you to restart the game for a new attempt at the conquest. This boss list is provided in the video description, so you can copy and paste it into your own text file if you'd like to use it for reference on your attempt. I usually have this list pulled up on a second monitor, and I'll quickly mark the boss kills off as I go. If you play with full screen windowed mode enabled, switching over to the document doesn't take up much time. After a boss kill, you'll immediately open up the map to teleport to the next boss's zone. The teleport casting animation, along with any game loading screen, may take 5 to 10 seconds, so this is the perfect time to switch over and mark off the kills on your list. You'll also want to be timing your attempt so you can spot check how you're doing. You can leverage a second monitor to pull up a stopwatch app on your computer, or you can use an app on your smartphone and have it next to you. Before you attempt this conquest, you'll want to first make sure you have the right gearing and skills set up to complete it. Up front, you will want to make sure that you can kill things with ease using a speed farming build on Torment 16 difficulty. This is an indication that you are deeper into the season and have a few Paragon levels under your belt, several levels on your key legendary gems, and some decent items for your class and build. To give yourself the best chance of success, you'll want to drop the game difficulty down to the minimum required to complete the conquest, Torment 10, even if you can easily kill things on Torment 16. At the lower Torment 10 difficulty, you'll be able to kill things even easier, and you'll also have inherently higher survivability, allowing you to shift any defensive related skills or items that you would normally need to movement speed related ones. This conquest is all about speed. Every second may be precious, and just a few seconds may be the difference between a successful run or coming up short. You'll be spending the majority of your time moving, hunting down the various bosses. So reducing your traveling time is the most efficient use of your gear and skills. Pick a good speed farming build for your class and review the skills and items used to see what can be swapped out. But of course, don't ignore damage output completely. When it comes to speed in particular, you'll want to kill the bosses quickly to take up less time, and in some cases, avoid some boss phases altogether. Some common items that are beneficial for most classes include the Engium weapon, which provides cooldown reduction after killing elite monsters. This will require you to periodically kill an elite group to receive the benefits, but the brief time spent wiping out an elite pack is usually worth it. If you're playing solo, then a good approach is to assign a follower and have them equipped with the Nemesis bracers so you can generate elite groups on the shrines you come across. And even if you're in a group, you might be able to wear the Nemesis bracers yourself. The Messerschmitt's Reaver weapon also provides some cooldown reduction that might be beneficial. Some other good items to use are the Warzekian Arm Guards, which grant movement speed when you destroy an object, or the Wreath of Lightning legendary gem, which at level 25 grants movement speed. While generally you don't want to spend time killing enemies because your priority is to stay on the move looking for boss entrances, hitting something periodically can trigger these bonuses so you can move even faster. At Torment 10 difficulty, killing monsters quickly should be trivial for you. Crown's Buff Belt is another item that grants significant increased movement speed and can easily be worked in with most builds. Other items that provide resource cost reduction, like Cinder Coat or Laoric's Crown paired with the Topaz Gem, can be helpful if your speed build relies on using your class's primary resource. Another common staple for your hired follower are the Homing Pad Shoulders. These can be helpful if you find that you need to teleport to town or to a different waypoint when near enemies, particularly if you're grouped up with other people and need to teleport back to town abruptly. The shoulders indicate that they provide interrupt prevention when using Town Portal, but note that they also prevent interrupts when traveling between waypoints accessed via the map. The Gloves of Worship could also end up being useful, extending the duration of any speed increasing shrines that you come across, but it might be difficult to work these into your build. For Barbarian, your primary mobility skills are Sprint with the Marathon rune and Furious Charge with the Merciless Assault rune. You will also want to leverage the Warcry skill paired with Chelenic's Chain Belt, which provides some significant increased movement speed. The Pound of Flesh passive skill also grants increased movement speed. You might also use the Leap skill, which will allow you to jump across openings or move up and down different platform elevations quickly. You can pair Leap with the Lutzok's boots to get additional jumps out of it. If you're using a Whirlwind build, then you will want to use the Bull Cathos' weapon set for both the increased Fury generation and movement speed. For Crusader, your main movement skill is Steed Charge with the Endurance rune, and you'll want to pair this with the Swift Mount weapon and the Lord Commander passive skill. With enough cooldown reduction, you will be able to maintain Steed Charge virtually permanently. Use Laws of Hope with the Wings of the Angel rune paired with the Long Arm of the Law passive skill. Cast Laws of Hope first and then cast Steed Charge to give Steed Charge an even faster movement speed buff. Additionally, Iron Skin with the Flash rune can provide increased movement speed. And also consider taking the Falling Sword skill. Though it has a long cooldown, it can have its place, allowing you to jump across openings or travel up and down different platform elevations. For Demon Hunter, your main mobility skill is Vault with the Tumble rune. To support this, you will want to use the Tactical Advantage passive skill, and then also use Shadow Power with the Shadow Glide rune. You basically will spam cast Vault and sprinkle in casts of Shadow Power while you watch your Discipline resource levels. You'll want to use Preparation with the Focus Mind rune to help with Discipline regeneration, but even so, it can be easy to run yourself dry on Discipline. So leverage the Tactical Advantage speed buff by trying to spread out casts of Vault and Shadow Power a little bit instead of spamming them on cooldown. You could also use Smokescreen with the Displacement rune, but that would put too much drain on your Discipline level. You can equip the Danetta's Hatred weapon set to help balance your resource spending and allow you to spam cast Vault directionally more. And you'll also want to use the Hot Pursuit passive skill. For Monk, you'll rely mainly on the Dashing Strike skill with the Way of the Falling Star rune. The Monk is easily the best class to use for this achievement, as they have superior mobility with this skill. It has a quick, snappy animation and has the ability to pass through walls, and when combined with other key items like Ingium, which grants reduced cooldown reduction, you can use the charges back-to-back virtually indefinitely. Additionally, using the Jawbreaker weapon will help you to retain charges of the skill. You should also use the Mantra of Conviction skill with the Annihilation rune and the Fleet-footed passive skill for additional movement speed. You can consider using the Sweeping Wind skill paired with the Kiroshiro's Soul Belt to passively destroy objects as you move about the map to help trigger the Warzekian Arm Guards. For Necromancer, your primary mobility skill is Blood Rush paired with the Stewart's Greaves boots. With this combination, you'll be able to maintain an extra 100% movement speed at all times. You'll also want to use the Fueled by Death passive skill combined with Devour with the Devouring Aura rune for additional increased movement speed that will happen passively. For Witch Doctor, the best movement speed skill is the Hex skill with the Angry Chicken rune, paired with the Monojuma's Way weapon set. With this weapon set, Hex receives a significant boost to movement speed along with increased duration, so you'll be able to cast the skill on cooldown and maintain the extra movement speed indefinitely. You'll also want to use the Fierce Loyalty passive skill for additional increased movement speed. You could also use the Spirit Walk skill with the Severance rune, but you probably won't use this much if you have access to the Monojuma's Way weapon set. For Wizard, your main movement ability is Teleport, paired with the Aetherwalker weapon. With this legendary power, Teleport will have no cooldown and cost Arcane Power resource, so you'll want to get extra resource regeneration and resource cost reduction where you can. You can take the Astral Presence passive skill, Familiar with the Arkanaut rune, Energy Armor with the Energy Tap rune, Magic Weapon with the Conduit rune, and you can equip Leoric's Crown with the Topaz gem. You'll also want to use the Illusionist passive skill for extra movement speed. Once you have your build set up, before you get started, you'll want to do a few more things. First, make sure you have cutscenes disabled. In the main menu under Options, go to the Gameplay tab and select the box to automatically skip all cutscenes. A few of the bosses have some cutscenes associated with their fights, and this will help you to save a few seconds without having to manually skip them. Additionally, some bosses may have some dialogue boxes that you can skip to move the fight along faster. You can hit the spacebar key to skip these quickly. Next, make sure you're in the right mindset to get this conquest completed. Since speed is your top priority, to get to each boss as quick as possible, performing any action that's not aligned with this objective may cost you a successful run. This includes killing monsters that don't need to be killed, and picking up loot off the ground, including legendary items and crafting materials. And don't forget that you may come across a rare goblin that you will have to skip, or otherwise potentially abandon your run and start over. Even spending the few seconds to pick up items that drop from the bosses you kill can add up. Next, make sure you're familiar with the important hotkeys and controls that you'll want to leverage. You'll do a lot of teleporting around during your run, so being quick with the map is important. When you need to move to a new zone, don't use your town portal to go back to town to access the waypoint system. Instead, you can do this via the map. Use the M key to open up your map and click on any waypoint to travel there. If you need to get to a different act, then use right-click to zoom out to the overall act view in lieu of hitting the minus symbol at the top of the screen. Some zones are pretty large, so if you find that you traveled to one side of the zone and there's no boss, instead of running back, it may be worthwhile to teleport back to the waypoint to save some time. The zones where bosses are located are indicated with a Diablo head symbol on the map, next to the respective waypoint. So when you're looking for boss locations on the map, focus your eyes on these symbols to narrow down what you're looking for. If you plan to use the in-game achievement panel to monitor your boss kills progress, then hit the Y key to open it up. Once you navigate to the specific conquest achievement at the beginning of the game, each time you hit the Y key again, it will open the achievement panel back up on the same conquest. As mentioned previously, it's recommended to keep track of your progress on a list that you maintain. So make sure your list is pulled up before you start, and also make sure you have your stopwatch app on your computer or phone ready to go so you can reference it as you progress. Once you're ready to start, double check your setup and make sure you're ready. Check your gear, skills, gems, Kanai's cube assignments, Paragon points, and make sure you have a follower assigned and double check their gear and skills also. Once everything is in order, recreate your game, making sure the difficulty is set at Torment 10. When the game first loads, make sure to start your stopwatch. And then, consider looking for bounties for some of the harder to locate bosses. In each game you create, you will typically get a bounty to kill a boss in each of the 5 acts. You're looking for a bounty to kill Adria or Urzael in Act 5, Diablo or Izual in Act 4, the Butcher or the Queen in Act 1, and Ghom in Act 3. Any bounties to kill the other bosses are irrelevant, since you'll be able to find them quickly regardless. Keep remaking the game until you find a favorable bounty combination. Finding bounties for the bosses mentioned in 2 of the 4 acts will give you a great head start. It's not worth continuing to recreate the game over and over to try to get the perfect combination of bounties in all 4 acts. It will take a few seconds to check for the bounties, but it will make your overall run much faster if you have some guidance on what direction to head in, even for just a couple of the bosses. Once you've got your stopwatch started and you note that you have some good bounties, then you can start killing the bosses. Next, let's review each boss and highlight some key elements. We'll show some example map layouts to give you a feel of what you'll be dealing with when searching for the bosses. But remember that the zones for the first 7 bosses on the list have random layouts, so the zone in your game won't look like the maps presented here. The remaining 9 bosses will either have the same exact layout, or they will at least be similar to the map shown. First, you'll start with Act 5. Ideally, you'll have a bounty for either Adria or Urzael, since they're the toughest ones to get to on the list. Adria's zone can be really tough, even with the bounty showing the location, because the path to get to her is often not direct, and you'll need to travel a long way around to get to her. Once you find her, she can be killed relatively quickly. Then move on to Urzael. Know that his entrance is the same tile set in each game, and you'll approach it from the bottom right, moving toward the upper left of the screen. Urzael's fight is one of the slowest, as it takes a while for him to transition phases. There's also some dialogue boxes that you can skip by hitting the spacebar key to move things along more quickly. Next, head to Act 4 and look for Diablo and then Izual. The best approach to find both of them is to just pick an outer wall once you teleport into their respective zone, and follow it around until you see the entrance. Diablo's fight has a few transitions that you'll have to wait out. And Izual is a pretty quick kill, though he can freeze you in place, delaying you if you don't get him down fast enough. After killing those 4 bosses, you'll want to do a time check to see how much time you have remaining. Ideally, you should have at least 13 minutes left. If you don't, then you should consider cutting your losses and remaking the game to try again. Next, head to Act 1 and look for the Queen and the Butcher. Remember that for both of them, you'll approach their entrance from the bottom left moving toward the upper right, along a longer straightaway stretch. So if you have a bounty for them, try to head toward the lower left of the ping location on the map to get to the right position. The Queen fight has a couple of transitions where she will run away and you'll have to kill some smaller enemies before she returns. But if you have high enough damage output, you can kill her outright before she has the time to run away at all. This is another good reason for having the difficulty set to the lower Torment 10 to ensure you can one-shot her. And then for the Butcher, he can be killed relatively quickly. Next, you'll want to head to Act 3 and look for Ghom. Just like the Queen and the Butcher, you'll approach Ghom's entrance from the lower left heading toward the upper right. So again, if you have a bounty for him, head toward the lower left of the ping location on the map. And once you find him, he can be killed relatively quickly. After killing those additional 3 bosses, you'll have 7 total down with 9 to go. Now is another good moment for a time check to see how much time you have remaining. Ideally, you should have at least 9 minutes remaining. And like before, if you don't, you should strongly consider remaking the game to cut your losses and try again. Since the remaining bosses for the most part have set locations and travel distances, it will be really difficult for you to make up time through traveling. Next, while still in Act 3, head to Cydaea. Once you teleport to her waypoint, just follow the map around in a circle until you find the entrance to the next level. You'll have to do this a couple of times to get to her actual entrance. But once you get to her, she can be killed pretty quickly. And then, still in Act 3, head to the Siegebreaker Assault Beast. If you have a teleport type skill, be aware that this zone has several places that you can transition through walls or up and down elevations to make it a little quicker. Once you get to him, he can be killed relatively quickly. Next, head to Act 5 and head to Malthael. When you load into his waypoint, don't go to the right. Head to the left and travel through the series of interconnecting portals. At the end, you'll reach his entrance. Malthael has a couple of transitions during his fight, so you'll just have to stick these out. Once you kill him, there's several seconds of his death animation that you'll have to sit through, and you won't be able to open up your map to get to the next location quickly. This is a good opportunity to do another quick time check and make sure you're on track with your progress. At this point, you should ideally have at least 5 minutes remaining. Next, go to Act 3 and head to Azmodan. His zone is extremely linear, so just keep heading past all the enemies in the zone to get to him. Once you do, he can be killed pretty quickly. Next, head to Act 4 for Rakanoth. Once you teleport to his zone, head forwards and take the first left that you can, and take that pathway straight until it dead ends into his entrance. He can also be killed pretty quickly. Next, head to Act 2 for Maghda. Once at the waypoint, head to the right across the bridge and follow the relatively linear path around to the entrance. She can be killed off pretty quick. Then, still in Act 2, head to Belial. There's only one short route to go to reach him. There are multiple phases during the fight, so it will take a while to get him down. Next, head to the Skeleton King in Act 1. From the waypoint, head down the main pathway toward the upper right. There are several offshoots, but don't go down any of them. Take a left where the path dead ends to reach his entrance. It will take several seconds for the Skeleton King to load in, but once he does, he can be killed off pretty quickly. And then, lastly, head back to Act 2 to Zoltun Kulle, who is the easiest one to reach of them all. Take him down, and that will be number 16 out of 16, and you will be done. It is possible to do this conquest solo with any of the classes. However, an even easier way to complete this is to team up with at least one other person. If you're in a group, then your build speed and the randomness of each boss location is much less impactful. Each person in the game should split up and search for different bosses, ideally tackling the harder to find bosses first. Just be aware that for the entire party to receive credit for this achievement, everyone must accept the invitation to each boss's lair and be present for every kill. Just being in the same game isn't sufficient. To do this in the most efficient way, as all of the party members are searching, when someone locates a boss and the invitations to join are sent out, the other party members should immediately use their town portal to return to town first before accepting the invitation. Once the boss is killed, then those same party members should open the map and teleport back to the town they were previously in. It is important for them to not use their town portal spell because it will override the previous portal they established. Once back in their respective town, their town portal will still be there to return them to the location where they left off. This will save some time, avoiding the need to trek back through the same places they've already been. With the more people that you have in the game, it will be less important to follow the ordered list shown previously, and it's probably easier to just split people up in different acts to avoid confusion. And that's all there is to this conquest. Good luck trying to finish it. If you enjoyed the guide and would like to see more content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.